Hi, Ruth Fazal here, and welcome. Welcome to this first segment of Oratorio Terezin. And I'd just like to give you a little bit of background into the writing of the piece. You know, as I mentioned at the beginning of the full video, that this was what I would call a divine commission and something I wasn't looking to do, but after being given this book of poetry and art of children from the ghetto of Terezin. Terezin is a small town. It was then in Czechoslovakia, which is now called the Czech Republic or Czechia. About 40 minutes drive northwest of Prague. And this is a place where the Jews were taken, and it was a place of deception. And you can read all about that on my website, just to what was Terezin. And you can do a search on that and you'll find a lot of things. It absolutely it was fascinating, horrendous, and yet there's an element of it in which we see the human spirit triumphing in an incredible way. And so in the context of putting the children's poetry together with the Hebrew scriptures, because obviously the scriptures very much make sense of it all. I was so amazed when I first started. I chose the poems, and then I first started looking for pieces, portions of scripture that would kind of go together with this poetry. And I had no clue. I had no clue what I was doing. I really didn't. And I found myself having to face questions that I'd never even thought about before in my sort of comfortable middle-ish class English background where, you know, I didn't really know very much about anything, I have to say, and especially not about the Holocaust, because at the time when I was at school it wasn't taught. So the piece itself, I realized that I needed to have different elements to express different things that were going to be in the piece, in the text. I knew that obviously there's going to be God's voice because we need to hear from God in the context of all of this. I knew that there was going to be the voice of the prophets, because that is an incredibly important and key role as we look towards the future and what's God saying and what is God going to do. I knew obviously that there were going to be children for singing the poetry of the children. I knew that there needed to be a voice that somehow represented suffering. And I thought, what could this be? I felt it needed to be a female voice. That sense of Rachel weeping for her children. And so I chose to write it for a very high soprano voice that just sort of soars above the whole piece. She never sings words. She only ever just cries out, really. So it's amazing. And then I realized too that there was an element of the tension and the struggle in the crisis of, you could say, the crisis of faith. That sense of crying out to God in a very strong way. Almost like a cry that says, why don't you do anything? Why doesn't this change? And so I felt that I needed also not only a children's choir for the children's poetry, but I needed an adult choir for it's like playing that role of when something really positive is said, that role that says, but what about this? But what about that? And so it's a little bit like that. And sometimes, and quite often, the children and the adult choir sing together. So the whole piece begins with the sense of impending doom, as it were. There's the high tremolo strings, there's the sound of the shofar, that sound that calls us to attention, that we need to hear from heaven, really. And then there's the sound of the timpani, the drum, that you just know that something very bad is coming. So that's the beginning of the piece. Then the first words that are spoken are from God. And this was an amazing thing to me. The Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 2, where God says, I remember the devotion of your youth, your love as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness in a land not sown. Israel was holy to the Lord. And, I so knew nothing. I didn't know even that those two words, I remember, there couldn't be more poignant words to the Jewish people than those two words. So that God led me to open the whole piece with those words, or just those two words, I remember, hearing from God right at the beginning of the piece. He sets the scene. The next movement is a poem by a child called Michael Flack, and it starts, the heaviest wheel rolls across our foreheads to bury itself deep somewhere inside our memories. Remembering that these poems, most of them were written in Czech, and there's probably quite a lot that gets lost in translation. But it certainly comes across very strong. And the heaviest wheel rolls across our foreheads. I couldn't help thinking of the trains, the transports that took women, men and children to the death camps. And there was certainly those trains that came to Terezin, and they took the people from there. And so this song has, it has this sense again of a relentlessness, and you hear it at the beginning of the piece. It says, meanwhile the rivers flow another way, not letting you die, not letting you live, like caught in this horrendous place. Powerful, powerful poem. And one that really, really touched my heart deeply. The next thing that is sung is by the choir, adult choir, and they sing from Psalm 83. O God, do not keep silent, do not hold your peace, or be still, O God. Even now your enemies are in tumult. Those who hate you have raised their heads. They say, come, let us wipe them out as a nation. Let the name of Israel be remembered no more. Wow. Come, let us wipe them out as a nation? Could this not have been a headline from our newspapers? The countries that are set against Israel to destroy her as a nation. Let the name of Israel be remembered no more. How often have we heard that expression, we're going to wipe you off the map? But God has another plan. But this is the first time that we hear this, in a sense, the if you call it the protagonist, but it's the one that's always questioning. And we need to do that. And this piece causes us to do that. And it felt, this one really, really, really touched me. And then the last song that you hear in this segment is a poem by Hannes Hackenberg, also born in Prague, and 29, 39, 42. So He was 13 years old when he wrote this poem. Wow, it's a powerful poem. And there's one stanza in it that says, I was once a little child 3 years ago. He's 13. I was once a little child 3 years ago, that child who longed for other worlds, but now I am no more a child, for I have learned to hate. I am a grown-up person now. Is that the marks of a grown-up, that we've learned to hate? But then he goes on, but I still believe I only sleep today, that I'll wake up a child again and start to laugh and play. Is just what a poignant poem this is. And it opens up a lot of questions. He's talking about how tragic then is youth that lives with enemies, with gallows ropes. And how tragic then for the children on your lap, talking to the child, to the parents, to say this for the good, that for the bad. Amazing. So I bless you as you listen to this first portion, this first segment that I have chosen. And these segments will continue. Each week I will put up a new one. And they will continue in order as the piece goes. And so if you choose to listen to the oratorio this way, you will hear the whole thing. So thank you. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for listening. Please don't forget to share this. And don't forget that on January 27th, 2021, the documentary I Will Not Die will be shown. It's International Holocaust Memorial Day, and so it will be available on the internet for the whole day to watch. And I just hope that you will let people know about that, as you let them know also about the oratorio. Bless you all.